Tidbits mini collage panel grouping, take 10. Action.
Here we go. You know, I'm asked, and I know Elizabeth is asked, what do you do with the prints that you make? And in Elizabeth's case, the answer is usually fairly obvious because she's going to tear them into tiny pieces and paint with them. But for someone like me, there's a lot of things that I do with them, but something that we decided to play with today that is unusual, certainly for me, and I think that you don't normally work this small, is to take these adorable little, and this is the bag, to take these adorable little 4x4 panels and do something with them. So this actually goes this way. This is a print that I made in the process of the various things that we were doing here. And then I created 3 panels. So these will hang, not as a triptych, but they'll hang together in some way, shape, or form. So there's these 2, and then there's one with hearts. And I'm just gonna put them on the wall someplace as a grouping. And that's
So we can show them all like this.
Yeah.
There. So like there are 3.
Right. And Elizabeth is actually doing something very different. This is the Yasutomo rice paper, the one that we print on all the time, and I had this print and I tore and cut it up. But Elizabeth, as part of a different video that we filmed, created wet strength tissue that had these really fun backgrounds on it, and she's taking advantage of the areas that weren't solidly colored to give you this open space, and she'll explain that in the video, but it is a really interesting effect. And again, she's got 3. Do you want to hold them all up together? You hold 2 and I'll hold 1?
Yeah. So they're a nice grouping. I think they're cute because they're small and they're 4x4, but just by itself, it's pretty lonely. So we thought a grid of them, either 6 or 4 in a square or 3 across or however many you want to do, would look kind of nice. So the one that I did in the video, I finished the edges with the pink. I decided to go for pink instead of the teal, but you could hang it any way you want. But this was my demo, and I just wanted to show you that I finished the edge.
You know what? We need to talk about the double stamping. Remember you mentioned that, so yeah.
So yeah, for example, on this one, I made the first stamp with a very light lilac that was not standing up very well. So I came back and lined up the stamp over the top of it with the dark green, and it's just slightly out of register. So you get the 2-tone, you get the lilac and the dark green kind of shifted. And so that it didn't look like a mistake, I did it to all of them because, you know, that's how you do that. But I like the look of the 2-tone. So this one is the green with the darker violet, and then this one was stamped with dark green and light green. So all you have to do that is try and line them up, and you won't perfectly line them up, but they'll be shifted a little bit, and you can get 2-tone stamp. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was a lemon made into lemonade.
Yes, it was.
Shall we go make some more lemonade?
Yeah, let's go make some.
All right.
So Barb and I were wondering how cool it would be to create a series of very small panels and hang them together in a grouping. So we're working on these little 4x4 cradled wood panels, and we are making, at least I made a grouping that has a harmonious color palette, takes advantage of some roll-off sheets on wet strength tissue with some foam stamping on top with some of my new Klimt Scribbles and Doodles foam stamps. So the roll-off sheets I created with a 4-inch brayer and a 2-inch brayer so that I had small areas of color pattern because I'm using a small 4x4 panel. And these are the Art Alternatives wood panels in the Studio Depth 3/4 inch profile. So these are adorable, right?
Just like us. They're adorable.
Just like us. So you could do them 3 across. You could do 3 vertical, you could do 6, or you could do 4, 4 of them together. And the color harmony is what kind of makes them all go together and look nice. So we could do another one and do 4, you could do more, a whole bunch of them in a big area, evenly spaced apart would be kind of fun. So I used those small brayers and the wet strength tissue and just as roll-off sheets, but I made sure that I left myself some empty tissue area because what you're seeing here in the opening is the tissue over the wood. So you get this nice kind of rough edge negative space that is the wood color. And then I painted the edges a color from the same harmonious color palette. So it's the purple that shows up in the three of these. So I would pick a color, one of the colors from your palette from the front, and paint the edges. And I would also suggest that you choose an opaque color to paint the edges so you can get it kind of done with in one coat, because if you use a transparent color to paint the edges, you're going to have to put many coats to get it to cover the wood. So in this series, I'm going to use this color palette of pink and yellow, and then I'm going to add my stamp with the teal. And this teal color, you can see by the solid box here, is opaque. So that is the color that I would use on my edges, because it'll be a pickup from the front color. So what I did with my panel is I kind of auditioned where I wanted the color to go, and you can do that because you can see through this wet strength tissue, so you can sort of slide it around and see, like, how do I want this to come up on the panel. And I was kind of looking at this area right here, but we could slide it around and get heavier coverage. But remember, I wanted to have the negative space, the edge of this, and the wood showing through. So I think this is where I want to do it. So I'm going to grab it and flip it over and take this thing out of it. And then take a pencil and just trace the edge. You could cut this with a mat knife if you were on a self-healing cutting mat. There's many different ways you could do this. I'm just taking the scissors and trimming it as best I can at the pencil edge. It's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. One of those other ones I had to touch up a little bit with paint because it fell a little short, and I don't think anyone's going to notice unless they're right on top of it. But that is the beauty of the hand of the artist. It's never going to be perfect like the machine. Even the machine's not perfect. Right, Barb?
This is so true.
Okay. A good sharp pair of scissors is always helpful for this. So now you can see that I'm going to have this nice wood-colored negative space around here, which gives me a real sense of organic edge on the colors of the pink and the yellow. All right, so I'm going to use a matte medium, gel medium, and put that down onto the board. The key to getting the wet strength tissue to go a little bit translucent, or to a lot translucent on this particular color, is to add glue to the top. The other thing I want to always suggest is that you get a lot of glue out to the corners, because those are the points that want to peel up, because we tend to not get enough glue out there. So make sure you get out to all the edges and all the corners. And then I'm going to line this tissue up on there. And since it's wet strength tissue, it can be repositionable because it's durable, sturdy. So you can glue it down, and if you're not in the right spot, like I'm not, I'll lift it up and move it down a little bit more. I'm more worried about lining up my bottom color than the top, because the top is where it's kind of going off to clear. So I don't want an empty space underneath my color at the bottom. So now I'm using this big brush because I have a big piece of paper here, and I'm pressing with the matte medium on top and pressing out from the center so I can get the bubbles, the air bubbles, out from the center to the edges. And then I'm gonna just let the brush go over the corners like this. Oh, I got a few more bubbles. Put that like that. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get all those bubbles out. Okay, so how cool is that? So now we can see the wood, and it almost looks like this color was just sort of brayered directly onto the wood, because the wet strength tissue really disappears because it's a very similar value to that wood. So, and then like I said, I would paint the edges with definitely with an opaque color, and since I am going to be doing this with the stamp with the teal, that's the color I would put on the edge. Then you have a nice color harmony from the front.
Let me take that for you.
Yeah.
Let's get that out of your way. I'll get it. No worries.
Okay. So let's see. So you want to keep your eye on it for the wrinkles. I mean, like we said, nothing's perfect, but I'm just going to keep my eye on it as it kind of dries. It wrinkles up a little bit, and I'm just going to press it down. make sure all the air is out of it. It doesn't really take that long.
You know, and as I poke my finger into your shot, this is the difference between the way you think as an artist and the way that I think as a hack. It would not have occurred to me to do that, but it becomes so effective. And for someone who is a little timid about applying paint right to this surface, you can do it on the wet strength tissue, you can audition it, and you can decide you love it, and then apply it, and you're done, as opposed to putting the color right on the wood and deciding you don't like it.
Yeah, and to be able to see through it and move it around and audition it, and we'll get 3 this way, you know, so, or 4. So when I want to do that grouping, I'm going to grab my others out of these same sheets, and I'll have that grouping of backgrounds that'll be the same colors, but in different shapes and different amount of yellow and blue, yellow and pink and light pink. So one may be heavier on the pink, one may be heavier on the yellow, etc. You can choose them that way. For example, let that set for a second. So here I had the lime green and the purple, and I had the negative space here. This one I didn't have any lime green. I had the darker green and the purple. And this one I didn't have the darker green. I had the lime green and the light purple. So they're all in the same palette, but they've got different amounts of each color. And you could even rotate them and kind of switch them around whatever way you want. So I like the idea of hanging them as a little group.
While you're waiting for that to dry, can I ask you something?
No.
Yes. Can you explain how you hang this off the back? What it is that you do to hang that off the back? Because I know you're going to need a second for that to dry.
To hang it on the wall?
Yeah, you always talk about doing something on the back.
Oh, yeah. Well, in a bigger panel, I put the hooks inside the edge here.
Oh,
but you wouldn't be able to
really
do that on this
practical.
one because you can't really get the drill in there.
Okay.
So what I would suggest that would be the easiest thing for this is a sawtooth hanger.
Okay.
That you can pound in with a hammer up here, and you can bang it in pretty low, so it just is a very slightly high, and then it'll grab the head of a very small nail. These don't weigh anything, so a tiny nail and a sawtooth hanger at the top, because it's too small. If you were to go to 6 inches, then you could probably get your screws inside for a wire, but this is pretty small. But that's a good question. Yeah, how are you going to hang it? The other thing is that they stand on their own, so you could stand them along a shelf too.
Okay.
But I like the idea of hanging them in 4 or 6 or 8 or 12. So yeah, the little sawtooth hanger. Or, if you're going to hang them someplace, you could also just put the nail in and let it rest inside here. The only thing about that is the sawtooth has little ridges, so the nail doesn't slide back and forth. They might end up getting crooked this way.
Okay, makes sense.
But maybe don't put them on a wall with a door that slams, and they may not get crooked.
So when I film at home, you'll notice that when I film well, not you, because you don't watch my videos, but you'll notice that when I film the videos, behind me is a door, and the section next to the door that has a whole bunch of artwork hanging on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I use that museum putty stuff. It'll hold up to, I think, 3 pounds.
Oh, so there you go.
So you could conceivably use it on this, and that keeps it very flat to the wall.
Yes, flat to the wall would be better. And yeah, absolutely, something like that, because this doesn't weigh anything.
No, I'm picking one of these up and guessing maybe 6 or 7 ounces at the top.
Yeah, at the most. Yeah. So now I'm taking this Circle of Life Klimt foam stamp, and I'm going to put the teal on it. And you do need to go a little heavier with the paint on the foam stamp than you would to create a gel print. So, give yourself a little bit of a thick, yikes.
It didn't fall where you didn't want it to.
No, don't bounce off of that. Because you want to get a good coverage. There we go. Good coverage so you can make a good impression. And usually after I tap it, I also roll it. And I'm not going to use this whole stamp, but I don't know where I'm going to end, so I'm going to fill it up pretty well. And the gel plate works great as a palette for that, for even application. You don't want to get it into the low areas of the stamp. Okay, so now I think I'm just going to run it off the edge, kind of like this. That looks kind of good. Like that. And how I would do this in a series is, let's make sure we get this all here. Oh, look at that.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. And how I would do this in a series is the next one I would come over with the different end, or I would come with the side, or I would come with the angle. So then you have consistency in pattern of this foam stamp, but the stamp is not done exactly the same way every time. So for example, the next one, I would come to the bottom of this stamp and come in from the other corner. right? And then maybe one across the bottom. So again, that's what I did with this one. I brought, this is the tail end of that stamp. This is the other end of that. And on one of them,
All right, it's wet from the sink, but here you go.
here we go. So I used the tail end and I used the front end. So you got opposite sides. And so this is the tail end. And then, you know, you can rotate them around different than from how you stamped them. I mean, they're equal, right? So I didn't stamp this way. I stamped it that way, but you could choose to hang it. Like, I kind of like it like that. So, and then for these others, like maybe one of them goes down and one of them goes this way. So you just mess with the same. I just used the same stamp. I think it brings in harmony with the color and with the pattern. So check this out. That's awesome, right? So that's just going to be really cute. And I would do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more of them and just angle the stamp in different directions, run it off a different edge, and use different combos of pink and yellow. And there you go. And then paint the edges with the same teal from the front. Or the pink, because that's also an opaque color. That might be pretty. So that's it.
Awesome. I really do like that.
Me too. There we go.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay. So anyway, that was fun working on something tiny. I think for me, it was fun because it's kind of immediate gratification. It doesn't take 3 or 4 days. I mean, we did it in a matter of an hour, and it was fun to work on those tiny canvases and be done.
Yes, we made lemonade. We made a vat of lemonade.
Yeah, quite a bit.
We had a good time. And for me, it's a chance to do, I mean, normally I don't get to finish projects. I get to kind of get partway through them. So this was fun for me. And I'm going to hang them someplace at home when I get there. I don't know where, but someplace.
Yeah, there you go.
Or arrange them on a mantle or something.
Yeah,
like
that was the other thing I wanted to say. You could just arrange them on a shelf, you know, stand them up.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
fun.
All right. Well, we had a good time. We hope you do too.
Yeah, we'll see you back here next week.
Bye.